Dickinson College is a place where leaders thrive, on the field, in the classroom, and in the community. Often, Dickinsonians engage all three levels, and sometimes these young leaders can match them in the very same vein. One of them is Reed Salmons.
I'm Reed Salmons. I'm a Dickinsonian, Red Devil athlete, play on the Dickinson men's varsity lacrosse team. I'm a biology major, and I'm a peripheral blood stem cell donor derived from my bone marrow, and I've registered for Be the Match.
At one moment or another over a 4-year journey at Dickinson, whether it's heated class discussion, study abroad, or the last possession of a rivalry game, mental or physical, each student makes a decision with confidence. They know it's the right time to take the lead, and Reed's moment arrived in unique form.
The bone marrow Be a Match registry came to campus, and Coach Webster told us that it would be a great thing for us to do and encouraged us to go and register. I didn't know really anything about it, and I went there, and I'd only heard about bone marrow donations. I hadn't even heard of peripheral stem cell donations. Totally easy, totally harmless. You just walk in. It took about 10 minutes. I think the longest time to do it was lunchtime because there was a lot of kids lining up for it, and there was great advertisements for it around campus, and I just went with a few guys and a few of my teammates and walked in and just did it really quick.
And now Reed relives that routine walk right through the center of campus, into a place he goes every single day. But that afternoon, he opened the door to something special.
Walked in here a year ago, had no idea that I'd be here right now. Ended up donating my stem cells, and it's really, really cool, nostalgic moment.
Inside, Reed remembers the entire process with Be the Match being very simple.
The Be the Match registry came right here. This is the Hub Social Hall, Holland Union Building, the center of Dickinson's campus. They had 2 tables here, and they just kind of ushered you in. And there was just tables set up all over the place, and then against the back wall was where you go and get your little buccal scraper, your cheek scraper, and that's where I did it. You just scrape your cheek, put it in a little vial, shake it up, and give it to them. Make sure you give them your contact info. So that's all it took right here.
And then it was out of sight, out of mind, at least for a while, until his smartphone had a string of messages.
I had a few missed calls with one voicemail, and there are 800 numbers, so I normally just ignore those anyway because I've been prey to some telemarketers. And I got an email following up with that saying, please look at your phone, your voicemail, and please respond. And I listened to the voicemail. It was a lady who worked for the registry saying that I'm a potential match for this patient. And I didn't know anything else at that point, and they said, would you be willing to, and I called them back and they said, would you be willing to go through further blood testing to see if you could be a full match for this person? And it was a no-brainer. I just said immediately, absolutely. I hadn't even asked anyone, my dad, my mom, Coach Webster I knew would be totally fine with it. Everyone I knew would be totally supportive of a really great cause, and so it was a no-brainer.
Simple, transformed into service. There's no doubt that for Reed, the decision to donate was his driving force.
I've always been driven to help people in various ways, and I never really thought that this way would come up, such a commitment, time, and not necessarily your body, but it's just a lot of time and a lot of testing and a lot of going to the hospital and driving and things like that and logistics. So what really committed me to this was just the fact that they told me that there was a person out there, a specific person who I'd be benefiting. And it's not just like my blood donations where I go in and send it to a bank for trauma centers and things like that where someone comes in from a car crash and they need blood. Because I fortunately have the universal blood type for donating, so it helps with that as well. But I think what really set in my mind was the fact that it was just a person, and they made sure I knew that it was a person, and it was a guy, and they told me what he had, and it was great. And that really motivated me to help because I could just picture my dad in that situation, and I'd want someone to be out there and not be selfish and contribute.
1 in 540. Those are your ballpark chances of being a U.S. Be the Match registry bone marrow or peripheral stem cell donor. The stats are sobering. Every 4 minutes, someone is diagnosed with a blood cancer. 360 people a day, and 15 people each hour. But Reed, he never focused on those numbers, only on his new assignment. Instead of training to square up with the Centennial Conference's best lacrosse competition, Reed geared up for the hospital. His anecdote? Success stories. Other athletes donating stem cells.
My dad first sent me a video clip of a football player from Villanova. We're big University of Delaware fans because we're from there, and Villanova's a good rival. And one of their star players went through the bone marrow donation, and they had a great video clip of him, and that really motivated me early on because honestly, like, you worry about it's your senior year, you want to play well, but I'd still commit to this program. It's just you have those concerns. And watching him go through it all and taking the time off, and he was a dual sport athlete, so he had football and baseball in the spring. That was really motivational, and he made it through and just fine.
And after some prep, Reed was all set to stare down a series of machines.
I wasn't afraid. I honestly don't think I knew enough about it to be afraid. I went in a little naive. I did a lot of reading and research. The prep before the little procedure where they put the catheter in my femoral vein, known as a central line catheter. The prep for that was taking a drug known as Neupogen or filgrastim. And essentially what that did was elevate my circulating stem cell levels. And the stem cells are what makes white blood cells, basically. And by elevating those levels, they were able to basically get the cells from my bone marrow into my bloodstream and then pull it out using a catheter in my vein. So the prep work, there was a drug that made me a little achy, kind of like flu aches and things like that. Some days were worse than others, but it gives you a reason to hang out for a little bit and know that you're helping someone. So you kind of view the pain as a productive thing because it means the drug is working.
The procedure was a success. And for Reed, the instant sight of his cells surging through, moving alongside each other, was a reality check.
The machine's really cool because it's right next to you and it's crunching and you can hear it moving around. And you just see the bag filling up of all the stem cells, and you have another bag of plasma that they eventually put in there to mix it all together. And it was really cool. And at the end of the day, the professional courier came in with a cooler. It was like straight out of central casting of a movie, took it away, and it was in a blizzard. So, I didn't hear about what happened to him until the next day, but they made it to the patient pretty much on time, and it was really cool.
Reflecting on the procedure, and true to his biology background, Reed says that when science matches up, you gotta seize the opportunity.
It was a blessing. I felt really happy and privileged to be the person that gets to do it because you get to directly help someone. It's never a guarantee, but it definitely elevates his chances of survival from an otherwise really killing disease. With the area of study, it just means I had a heightened level of knowledge, not expert obviously, but I knew a lot more about it than I think an average donor would about this particular disease. And so I kind of got a full perspective on everything, and I knew exactly, I work in a leukemia lab, the exact same disease that this guy has. And so it's pretty cool to work at the bench and be working on things with my professor, Mike Roberts, that this will hopefully one day cure this guy without having to use people like me. But I really hope it works out for him.
Service has almost come full circle for Reed, but he knows his work in the lab, his fight against cancer, is just beginning.
I come in here, Rector, Science Complex, every single day to go to class and work in my leukemia lab, my Professor Roberts. And never thought I'd have the opportunity to, like I have had, to really affect someone on a personal level who has leukemia. It's really, really rewarding.
Reed's donation is anonymous, helping a patient in need. But in the lab, it's his inspiration, searching for success in expert science.
Reed has been on my radar screen for a while because his first semester here, freshman year, he was in my intro bio class, which is a course called Understanding Cancer. And he impressed me right away because he was one of those front row guys who was really engaged with the class, very interested in the course material, had lots of good questions and lots of answers to my questions. So I got to know him really early on, and he expressed interest in cancer research from his very first year at Dickinson. And we always had sort of this understanding that at some point in his academic career that he would try to do research with me. And so finally, his senior year, that's happened.
Here's a poster of our project, our current projects. Here's our principal investigator and my advisor, Dr. Roberts, Mike Roberts.
Studying with Roberts at Rector, Reed is taking advantage of top-notch facilities and also the very cells he needs to keep researching for a permanent cure. Roberts is quick to shine light on the quality of Reed's work.
So, because we're at Dickinson College and we're not affiliated with a medical school, does that mean that we can't study human cancer? And of course, that's not the case because we do. And the way we do it is to not work directly with leukemia patients, but to work with their cells. So what you see here are culture dishes where we're actually growing leukemia cells. And in this dish we have some cells from a patient who had acute myeloid leukemia. That's the leukemia that we study. And they're probably on the order of about 100 million leukemia cells in this dish. And we can keep them going as cancer cells. They'll continue to divide as long as we provide them with food, which is this liquid media. So we can culture the cells and use them as a source for our studies. The cells grow in these little plastic dishes, and then we keep them in an incubator that is a mimic of what it would be like to be a leukemia cell inside the body of a person. This is at 37 degrees Celsius or body temperature. It's in a CO2 buffered environment, so it's like being in the tissue of a person. And the cells, as I said, will grow indefinitely as long as we provide them with the nutrients. So Reed's project actually is to try to figure out exactly what the differences are between the leukemia cells and the normal cells from which they were derived. So all cancers start as normal cells, and through the process of mutation they acquire characteristics that give them this property of continuous growth. And so our lab is trying to figure out what are the key genes that are changing in the cells. And the really cool thing that we can do with these cells in culture is we can sort of coerce them into behaving more like normal cells. We can add things to the media which changes the genes that the cells use, and in the process the cells start to revert back to a more normal set of characteristics. They stop dividing, for example, and they try to become a normal blood cell again. The type of cell that we trick them into becoming is called a macrophage, and it's a cell that we find in our body that carries out some important functions for the immune system.
For Reed, the details
hopefully
make the system work.
Further funding for research into this disease, because it's a big one. And obviously my attention to detail in the lab directly translates to everyone's attention to detail in the field. And I think we all have a really great balance of academics and athletics.
On the lacrosse field, Reed is relentless. For Coach Webster's fifth-ranked Red Devils, he is a defensive midfielder, operating out of the normal goal-scoring spotlight. But with his team support, matching up with the opponent's top threat is a challenge he's ready to bring on.
Reed's been an awesome role model as a student athlete for 4 years. We knew what we were getting when we recruited Reed, and he's lived up to those expectations.
Move it back. You know, at the middies, my friend told me that, as it was kind of funny, but the way you can measure your success in the field is if no one realized you were on the field. And I thought that was hilarious because he's a D middie in another college. And I think I love the position because I've always liked to kind of operate out of the spotlight and just kind of do my thing and try to do it as best as I can. And if there are errors, I like to work through them and things like that. And D-Midi is a great position because you get the other team's best players dodging on you, and sometimes they beat you, but that's the best part of our defense is because we slide and we have a great team defensive strategy. And I think that just the overall kind of defensive mentality of how you have to use everyone around you to help themselves and yourself out and help the team win is just kind of what I guess motivates to the selfless nature that I had envisioned to do for this donation.
So we're going to start with a ground ball, usually with an offensive advantage.
Coach Webster sees that vision in Reed on a daily basis. He plays lockdown D on the nation's best Dodgers.
Towards X and Y as outlets, so we can attack that weak side.
We talked to our D-middies about having a positional ethos or kind of thought process attitude, and Reed really took that to heart and leads by example within that group. And those guys are gritty and tough and tenacious and don't get a lot of stats or glory, if you will, but they're the key to the team. They set the tone in the middle of the field, and that suits Reed's personality really well. He's just a tenacious hard worker, always ready, very consistent.
I think that one of the reasons I did want to do this to begin with is kind of the selfless nature that Coach Webster instills in all of us as his players. So we always give to the benefit of the team. We always do actions with our team in mind, and I think everything all put together kind of led me to wanting to do it in the first place. And it all kind of has to start with Dickinson Lacrosse.
Let's go!
Now, Reed tells me that getting ground balls on the lacrosse field, that A in Professor Roberts' lab, and making lasting friendships are the crux of his Dickinson College experience. But just how much does this one decision, the opportunity to donate his cells to a complete stranger, change his life? To what degree is this a life-changing event for you?
To a pretty full degree. I think it's great in every way. It made my senior year a totally different senior year than I'd ever thought I would have. It gave me a new perspective on things. It helped me change priorities. I obviously had to set some training aside for this, and I had no regrets doing it. Coach is totally on board with it. And I'm going to always look back and hope that this guy made it, and hopefully I get to meet him in a year if the time comes, if we both release our patient confidentiality. Be regardless, I think the best thing for me and what I want to see happen is in one of my updates that I get every 2 months or so, just to be told that this guy's in remission or this guy's making it, which would be all the better for me.
Be the Match Donor program has strengthened Reed's Dickinson experience, proving an example of leadership that his mentors are proud of.
You know, gives him perspective, and he certainly appreciates what he has. That's something we talk a lot about on our team. That's part of the attitude we want to create here, and this is couldn't find a better example of that.
It made me sort of proud that he was willing to do this because it related directly to the kind of work that we were doing in the lab, because as a student in my cancer class, Reed had learned about sort of the disappointing lack of great treatments for diseases like leukemia that were available, and that for many patients, bone marrow transplants was sort of the last resort. So he made the connection right away between his signing up to be a part of this registry and the possibility that he could impact someone's life who had this disease that we were studying in the lab.
But the impact for Reed's donation isn't staying within the college's limestone walls. It's reaching connections outside of Carlisle, encouraging professionals who dedicate their entire lives to finding the match. What does it mean to you that Reed is not only a successful donor, but a student studying the very cancer that is such a problem that you're dealing with each and every day with new donors?
Well, I was thrilled when we found out that it was Reed. If you're a student that was a match, it's always admirable when we hear that because we do a lot of drives at different colleges. But to hear that one of our first colleges, the first year, had a match, we were just dumbstricken. And our goal would be the match is to help students understand how important they are to patients searching for a matching donor and to add them as a committed registry member. That's because people between the ages, as I said before, 18 and 44 are the most urgently needed since they are requested by transplant doctors more than 90% of the time. And research has showed that these donors provide the greatest chance for transplant success.
With Be the Match, Williams helps manage the world's largest and most diverse registry, with more than 10.5 million potential donors. And since the nonprofit organization's inception in 1987, Be the Match has facilitated more than 55,000 transplants for patients who don't have matching donors within their own family. Now, after a record year in 2013, numbers are looking pretty good, but the legwork can always be better. That's why Amy Haskew came to Dickinson. As a brand new Be the Match volunteer, Amy walked across the street and onto campus with a mission in mind.
Literally across the street. The Dickinson Drive has a very special place in my heart because it was the very first drive I did after I donated myself. So it was the first time I was able to share my own donation story. So the Dickinson Football team, as you know, did a phenomenal job with the drive. Literally, there were extra volunteers there, and we didn't have that much to do. So I was able to float around and kind of listen in to students. And if you've ever been to a drive, you can kind of see them come in. A lot of times they're very nervous because it's kind of an unusual thing we're asking them to do. They're not quite sure, so they want more information. And so I was able to share my story with each group of people as they asked. They could ask very specific questions. I could share very specific points of my story, and they just seemed to calm down and understand it on a deeper level what we were asking them to do.
Dickinson's student support that day was outstanding. Along with Reed, around 250 other students showed up. When Haskew found out that Reed had donated, she knew it was the catalyst for an exciting partnership with the college. What was going through your mind when you found out that Reed was a match?
Way to go, Dickinson. It's not that unusual for college teams to come up with a donor after a couple years, but to right out of the gate, the first year to get a donor, I can't come up with a good adjective for it. The guys did a phenomenal job. So this is what it's about. He actually went through, he donated, he's trying to save a life.
The good news quickly made its way up to Williams as well.
When we got the word that Dickinson was going to participate, we were awe-stricken. It's always really moving when we get a new college added on because our goal is to get hundreds of colleges on there because statistics have shown that the best match comes from between the ages of 18 and 44. So we work with hundreds of colleges and universities throughout the nation. However, it's always admirable when a young adult takes the step to host and Be the Match drive, even to save a life. We continue to work to expand our relationships across the country, especially through our Be the Match on campus.
The Get in the Game program, which Dickinson is doing a phenomenal job of running, and a lot of the other athletic programs are really stepping up to the plate, and we're getting donor after donor. What an example they're setting for their peers.
Like Reed, Haskew is a peripheral stem cell donor. She says her situation became personal because she felt that same need to help.
Well, I think everyone has that deep-seated feeling of they just want to help. They want to make a difference in the world, and I found my particular niche within this organization. I joined almost 12 years ago, and I got my phone call asking me to become a donor 11 years after I joined. You kind of wonder once you join if you're ever going to get the call, and I did, and I answered it. They asked me to save a life, and my answer was yes, absolutely. Can we do it tomorrow?
But Amy's opportunity wouldn't have been possible without the outside assistance of registry sponsoring funds.
I joined when I was an undergrad at a drive just like the one here at Dickinson. And if I had been asked to pay my own way into the database, there's no way I could have afforded it. So whoever paid for me to join the database, they themselves also saved a life when I went on to donate. So what a phenomenal way to do it.
For Haskew, the effect isn't momentary. It evolves forever.
Everyone, I think, wants to step up and help. And this is such an easy and great way to do it. If you're healthy and willing to do so, sign up and become a donor or a potential donor. If you can't do that, can you help someone else sign up and get into the database? Even if you're never called, simply by being in the registry, you're providing hope for the thousands of patients that are searching every single year. So literally, if you are 18, you join the registry, you are going to be in the registry for 43 years. So that's a 43-year commitment that you're making. And then also whoever helped you get into the database by sponsoring you, their financial contribution lasts those 40 plus years. You know, what other donation or help can you say that you've given that's going to have that long of an impact? So for 40 plus years, you are giving hope to every single searching patient. So it's not just about this year or next year. Literally, the people who signed up last year could be receiving a phone call in 5, 10, 15 years, and they'll be asked, you're a match. Will you save a life? It doesn't stop here.
Out of all of them, Amy thinks her initial experience with Dickinson paved foundation for a promising future.
Because it's so small, it's a very caring school. Because it's so diverse, there's so many opportunities and special characteristics that Dickinson has to be able to contribute that not many other places can.
Both Williams and Haskew have helped numerous patients find a match. But in the very threads of Reed's story, they're finding an extra ring of hope.
You know, I really think it was incredible that someone like Reed, who was studying youth biology, stepped up and joined the registry, and then he was a match. I mean, people like Reed, it's just, I'm almost speechless to say that he is going to be the role model for other athletes to see how simple it is. It's just a matter of filling out a consent form and swabbing your cheek.
Donors are out there. A lot of them don't have the courage to tell their story like Reed did, which is great. By sharing the story, he not only went on to donate, he stepped up to try and save a life. He is demystifying the process for everyone else, and he's saying, see, it's not as scary as you think it is. I can do it, you guys can do it. So let's all step up together and save more lives together. That's a phenomenal thing that he is doing.
Moving forward, Reed, Williams, and Haskew confident that momentum will continue at Dickinson. And that's why they're partnering with Associate Athletic Director and football coach Joel Quattrone to set up the second annual Dickinson Be the Match Drive. April 4th, 2014 will be that breakthrough day, and Haskew says that Carlisle is a unique stage for support to reach new heights.
Carlisle and Dickinson, they're very special places, and it can be done. So if you get the word out to the Central PA region, Carlisle, all the Dickinson students, get all the student organizations involved, all the sororities, fraternities, all the athletic teams, get everyone to show up and support the registry. So not only adding people in, but helping us financially support getting those people into the registry.
Right on three, 1, 2, 3. Red!
Phenomenal is the word described last year. I think I'm going to be running out of adjectives to describe each subsequent year.
The goal this time for the Dickinson community, to give hope to someone who's close to home. Meet Milena. She's a 15-year-old from central Pennsylvania, suffering from leukemia and searching for a match. After 50 transfusions of platelets and red blood cells, Milena needs help. And the Dickinson Football Marrow Registry drive could be that very blessing she so desperately needs. Williams says that with the Dickinson support, the drive can be a huge success.
It's going to be an awesome opportunity because we're going to advertise it, and Reed is going to be there, I'm sure, to talk about it. And we have a young lady who's 15 who's from the Pennsylvania area who is in need of a marrow transplant as we speak. And so we hope to use her as our focus patient for this event coming up.
April 4th, 2014. So part 2 of our partnership with Dickinson and the football team. Break last year's record. So what did we get last year? 260-ish? Can we break 300? Can we break 300? Can we have all sorts of ethnic diversity show up so we can give hope to those who are searching, who are of an Asian or Black ancestry? I don't know if Juliet talked about, I believe the team is going to be sponsoring Milena for the drive. She is a teenager currently searching for a match. There is no match for her in the database. Her father is African American, her mother is Caucasian, so she's considered to be of mixed race. People who are of mixed race have a more difficult time finding a donor. So can we find Milena a donor?
I think so.
Let's do it.
Now, the plan is to spread awareness. True to his nature, Reed says don't wait until the last minute to take action. You can visit bethematch.org, where you'll find the Dickinson Football page for drive details, and you can also learn more about the donor registry process.
So as you can see, you can go onto the website, bethematch.org, and get a lot of information about the donation process. And it's really at your fingertips. And then once the time comes for you to go and register, it's really easy. You can see there's a link here, join the registry. Just click that. So you can donate financially to the cause, you can donate your bone marrow, you can donate your blood, stem cells. This website's really great, and it kind of gives you a sense of how big this group is and how trustworthy they are, and there's really no downside to doing this.
Good, Tyler. Good. Everybody see inside.
On the
Gotta
field,
see it here, BC.
Coach Webster will echo
Read
Reed's
it,
call.
Willie. Good, Willie.
Took no time. You get in the line in the hub and see what you can do to help out. So absolutely, everyone ought to get involved with this.
In the Rector Center, Professor Roberts is ready to build on Reed's energy.
I think if you talk to Reed about his experience, while he would admit that it was a little bit frightening, I know that he's really glad that he did it, and it was not quite as invasive or traumatic as he thought to be a donor. And I think the word that he wants to get out to his friends and others is that it's a process that takes some physical and mental preparation, but the upside of it, the potential benefit from doing it, was well worth the effort for him. And so I'm hoping that he inspires other people to register.
Reed often thinks of his teammates and how important supporters are to building a giving heart.
They were all so supportive, and a lot of them stopped me individually or sent me text messages or emails saying how much they are happy with what I'm doing, and I hope that this transcends into them wanting to do it as well. And I hope that this kind of interview process this media will help kind of raise awareness and show how easy it is.
And Haskell emphasizes that America's new lifeblood, social media, will help the power of Reed's story help save even more lives.
Social media, the best way I can describe, is almost like a series of dominoes. So you flick one domino, and as it topples, it can topple 3 more, and then those 3 can topple 3 more, and you can just magnify the impact you're having just simply by getting other people excited on social media. And as they propel the message towards their own network, it just keeps going and takes on a life of its own. Like, I can imagine Reed's story might very easily have that magic to it that's going to take on a life of its own and continue and propel itself.
But no matter how many likes or shares the posts and tweets for Reed's story get, Amy says that true respect and real results trace back to a team mentality.
So he was asked to play defense on the field, and when he got that phone call, he was asked to defend someone else's life. He did it. So as a donor, when you get that phone call, that means that's the last hope. That's the last hope of survival for someone who is sick, is a marrow transplant. That means their doctors cannot do anything, their family cannot do anything to help the patient until a donor is found. So it all hinged on Reed stepping forward to say, yes, I'm going to help you.
241 years after Dr. Benjamin Rush founded a frontier college designed for our nation's young leaders, signs of his revolutionary vision are still alive in Carlisle. We see them in Reed Salmons, playing, researching,
Family.
donating.
Fortunately, the
And all
situation that I
together,
was in.
his service is very much a match.
I think being a Dickinsonian is about not just yourself, but thinking about kind of the world around you. So I think the global conscience that Dickinson instills, even in your admissions essays, if I remember way back, just gives you a higher conscience of everyone around you. And so I think that I would encourage anyone who's coming to Dickinson to absolutely register for the Be the Match registry. It is no harm to you. It's all paid for once it happens. And in that off chance that you get picked, you're going to feel so great about yourself when you've been able to help someone. Even if it never works, you gave them their best hope, and you can feel so great about doing it.